friends, it's Carol. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the dark side of Disney. We're going to talk about the dark sides of the parks and the rides, dark side of Disney himself, and dark side of the actual movies themselves. So we're just going to get right into it. Still standing today is an abandoned water park that was created by Disney called River Country. It's in Florida and it's been abandoned ever since it closed down. Disney themselves or anybody from Disney have never actually explained why it was shut down for good or why that it's still abandoned and they haven't put anything there in its place, which is kind of weird. It's really strange actually because the fact that the park just still sits there, Disney isn't one to just take a loss for something, especially something like a multi-million-dollar property like that. So it's just really weird that they haven't put anything in its place unless there's actually some kind of dangerous reason, which we'll talk about in a second, that people assume that it got shut down and that they can't use the property anymore. There's at least 4 accounts of people losing their lives at this water park. So 2 had drowned. One was a little girl that was actually sadly hit by a passenger train that went through the park. But the creepiest of all, and the thing that actually kind of sparks urban legends about this park, is one guy actually obtained a brain-eating, you heard me right, a brain-eating parasite from the park. So that actually sparked rumors into people thinking that that's why it closed down. There's even some urban legends about zombies that were at the park or still at the park, which is, like I said, I don't go into the super crazy stuff. We're just going to keep it with the facts that I could find online. So something else that's really creepy is as of last year, people who have explored the park have stated and also video recorded the fact that the lights are still on there and the music that plays throughout the park is still playing as of last year. I'm not sure about this year, but I just find that really weird. Like, why are they still paying for a park that's abandoned? Just doesn't make any sense. But Disney is so strict actually on keeping this place like under wraps and trying to keep it away from the public that if you are caught trespassing there, you are completely banned from any Disney park, attraction, or anything of Disney for life. In the original sets of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, so this could totally be a rumor, of course this is a lot of just folklore and rumors, so we don't know that's true. But in the original sets of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, it's said that Disney actually got real skeletons from real cadavers from UCLA to use in the set of the rides because the fake ones didn't look realistic enough. So that's just creepy to think that when you're going through that ride, probably not now, but back then, especially when it first opened, that those skeletons you were seeing were actually real skeletons. That's just, ugh, that's scary to me. So I will put out a warning that the next few things I'm talking about are actual deaths that have happened at the park. So might get a little gruesome, so if you want to skip forward past this part. But the weird thing though is there's actually technically no deaths that happen in the park. So anybody who has actually died or seriously injured, I guess, at Disneyland or Disney World were taken to the hospital first and pronounced dead at the hospital. That way, technically, Disney can say that there's been 0 deaths at the parks, when in reality, they know that the person died there. They just didn't want to say that. But Shane Dawson actually did a video on the deaths of Disney parks, which is where I got some of this information. So I'll link his video down below. But excuse me. First, in 2003, the Thunder Mountain Railroad ride had a horrible crash. Employees had said that they noticed that the ride was making a really weird noise, so they told maintenance about it. Well, the crews came through and inspected the ride and said it was fine. But the next day, a wheel of one of the trains actually flew off. It derailed the train and it crashed horribly, actually killing 1 person and injuring 11 other people. And this was all over the news. It was really widely spread, talked about. But again, he wasn't pronounced dead at the park. He was pronounced dead at the hospital, so technically he didn't die at Disneyland. But anyways, the worst though, and the most notable death that happened at Disneyland was the tragic story of Deborah Stone. She was an 18-year-old employee at Disney at the time. In 1974, Sorry, I'm sweating to death. It's gross, I know, but we're just gonna go with it. In 1974, they premiered a new stage show called American Saints, which Stone began working on. It used this like new technology where they like the sets would move. They were on like moving walls, so instead of like the guests moving, the sets themselves would just move, if that makes any sense. And it was new technology. So one day, while she was walking around just checking the stage and looking at everything, making sure it was all okay, one of the moving walls started going and actually pinned Stone against one of the other moving walls. When she started screaming, all her fellow employees started running to try and help her, but sadly it just kept crushing and moving, and it was too late by the time they were able to try and pull her out. But the creepiest thing is that this stage show continued to go on for 10 years after this. So I just find that really weird that they would keep it going after someone didn't die, but got seriously injured, at least, there on the set. So most all of Disney's early tales, like Pinocchio, Snow White, Little Mermaid, and Cinderella, were actually stolen, quote unquote. I won't say they were actually stolen, but I think they were stolen from old like folklore, I can't say that word, folklore, and like old fairy tales and stories from like the 1800s and 1900s. Almost all of them were based off these original stories. And those original stories have really dark and like gruesome plots and endings. So the first one being Pinocchio. In the original, he's still a puppet, but he's a lot more mischievous and really a bad kid, like way worse than he was in the Disney movie. He actually, when Jiminy Cricket came to him and warned him of his like bad behavior and that he should stop, he actually smashed the insect's head with a mallet. So that's just creepy. But sadly, for Pinocchio, he was severely tortured and beaten by all the adults in town because they just could not stand like naughty kids, to the point where, this is kind of dark, you might want to skip ahead if you don't want to hear it, but they tortured him and like messed with him so much that in the end he actually ended up hanging himself. So I'm glad that didn't make it to the original or the Disney movie. In The Little Mermaid, Hans Christian Andersen's original story was really dark. The deal that Ariel made with the evil sea witch was that she'd drink the potion giving her the legs, but she would have to marry the prince by midnight, and if she didn't, she would die. So she got the legs, but the witch didn't tell her that they were excruciatingly painful, that anytime she walked it was just really, really painful when she used the legs, and the witch didn't tell her that. Unfortunately, so more in the beginning of the story, Ariel is actually the one that saves the prince from the shipwreck, but when he awakens, he sees this other maiden there and thinks that she actually is the one that saved him instead of Ariel. So sadly, he ends up marrying this maiden instead of Ariel. So what happens? Ariel dies and turns to sea foam. So for Cinderella, there was no fairy godmother in the original. It was actually a magic tree that she had planted on top of her mother's grave, and sadly enough, she watered it throughout the years with her tears, giving it magical power somehow. When she needed a gown for the ball, she actually like cried out to the tree, and these two birds flew out of the tree somehow magically, giving her a gown and two golden slippers. They weren't glass slippers in the original. When the prince came to Cinderella's house to like see if the lost slipper that he found was hers, the evil stepsisters tried the shoes on first, but when they didn't fit, both of the sisters actually cut off their big toes to make the slippers fit, and almost actually convinced the prince, until he realized there was blood in the shoe and got a hold of Cinderella and saw that she was the one that actually fit in the slipper. The evil stepsisters actually went to go attend Cinderella's wedding. But on the way, those two birds that gave Cinderella the gown actually pecked their eyes out, leaving them blind for the rest of their life. And that was the end of the original story. From 2006 to 2014, again, this gets a little bit dark, more than 50 employees at Disney parks had been arrested due to crimes involving pedophilia and child pornography, which is just not something you want to hear from a children's park. But this is in no way saying that any of the execs at Disney or the parks or anything had any prior knowledge of these criminals' past. A sting in 2016 called Operation April Fools actually nabbed even more employees who were previous sex offenders. I will say that though, in my research, I noticed that as of right now, they do vigorous background checks on any like potential employees, so just throwing that out there. I'm sure you've all seen the videos or posts about the hidden subliminal messaging in Disney movies and other kids' movies as well. There's like the phallic-looking tower on the cover of The Little Mermaid and the letters SEX written in the dust on a scene in The Lion King. It could just be internet folklore. I still can't say that word. Folklore. Or even just like an animator that was trying to play a prank, I guess. However, it is somewhat creepy just thinking about the fact that this list of all these things is almost never ending. And all of this is found in children's movies. Especially when you consider what like a hold Disney movies and the company itself has on, or had even on, kids from our grandparents' generation to now. So it's just strange to think about. In the 1940s, Disney cartoons were heavily used to push war propaganda, which again, not really a big deal given the times, but when you think about the fact that like it's unsettling knowing that this was purposely aimed at children. And this also has a lot to do with like predictive programming, which I also would like to do a video on. If you guys want a video about predictive programming and all that stuff, leave this video a like and let me know. So the next stuff I'm going to mention, I have to say, is just theories and rumors. None of it is true. I'm not saying any of it is true. I'm not saying any of it's false. But I will say that it's just theories and rumors. None of this has been definitively proven because it is kind of dark, and Disney, don't sue me. If you guys see this video taken down, it's probably why. But there's been found to be links between Disney himself and the CIA, which has made people wonder if maybe the Disney parks were built with Disney and the CIA to potentially gain money to fund different CIA operations, from like secret underground experiments with MK Ultra and mind control, as well as funds to try and take down Fidel Castro, and like funds for things they needed during the war. And it's even rumored, again, it's just a theory, that it could have possibly been for things as dark as possible mind control experiments on children, which, again, just a theory and nothing's been proven. But ending on a like lighter note, as of 2016, the Disney company as a whole was worth $92 billion. It's just insane. But now that's going to go up even immensely more. Is that a word? Immensely more? Even more immensely now that Disney actually just recently bought Fox. So that $92 billion is just going to skyrocket, which is just, it's unfathomable to think about that amount of money. But when you have a company as big as Disney, as worth as much as Disney, and that's been around for generations, there's obviously going to be like secrets and theories and all that about the company. But excuse me. Yeah, I know this was a really dark, literally, video, but I've just always found all these like secrets about Disney and Nickelodeon too, which I'd love to do a video on, like the dark side of Nickelodeon. Let me know in the comments if you guys would like that too. But I've always just found it really interesting. I don't know why. I'm not like a humongous Disney fan. I've only been to Disneyland once in my life when I was 7, and I don't really remember it, but just always found this stuff about like different companies and networks and even just TV shows themselves, like the hidden side of it that we don't really get to hear about so much. But I hope you guys still enjoyed this video and hopefully found something about it interesting and I didn't scare anybody too much. But subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you'll hopefully be notified next time I upload. And until then, stay creative and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.